Good morning and happy Sunday to everybody. Wanted to give a little presentation this morning. I hope everybody's had a good weekend. And by the way, my name is Dr. Michael Richmond, and I'm a double board certified cardiothoracic and general surgeon. And I've also been practicing lipidology, which is the study and management of cholesterol disorders generally for the last 20 years. So today's talk is going to be, can nutraceuticals, in other words, supplements, lower your cholesterol? And I originally gave this talk in around 2013 or 2014 and have updated it at the Cardiovascular Prevention Symposium, which is an international conference. And I gave it in Miami to several hundred cardiologists. And it was actually pretty interesting because being one of the only cardiothoracic surgeons that does lipid management in the United States, it's neat to see the responses of non-surgeons when you talk about cholesterol management and how we go about it differently. And by the way, excuse me if you see my arm go up or you see a golden retriever. I have two beautiful golden retrievers that love to be a part of my presentations. So we'll start. So basically, we're going to talk about the most common supplements that are sold for lowering cholesterol. And that's red yeast rice, what are called plant sterols, polycosanol, and glucolipids. So I want to make a comment first about nutraceuticals in general. The first thing is that you need to remember that most of them are not FDA approved. None of them actually are FDA approved. And it should say on the bottle, this product has not been evaluated by the FDA or something to that effect. Because remember, they are not pharmaceuticals. There's very little regulation. If a supplement says pharmaceutical grade, immediately throw it away, because you know that whatever company that is already engaging in deceptive practices, because it's not a pharmaceutical and it's not made by a quote pharmaceutical company, so it can't be pharmaceutical grade. So what are things to look for in supplements? So you want to see, is there any third-party testing which ensures that what is on the label is inside the package? So is it NSF or USP verified? The second thing is you want to look for is the manufacturing process satisfactory, and is it high quality? So you would see some type of marking that says GMP or good manufacturing practice verification. The third thing is you want to see ingredient transparency. So you want to see the active and inactive ingredients listed and the amounts. And finally, the fourth thing is you want to get a supplement that avoids GMOs and fillers and artificial colors and flavors. Okay? So our talk is about, is taking supplementation, lowering cholesterol, useful or useless? There's abundance of data that many over-the-counter supplements have lipid-lowering effects. Most of the time, however, these claims are based on information from poorly conducted studies published in industry-supported magazines, which basically I call paid-for magazines, kind of magazines you would just read in a doctor's office, or you pick up at a newsstand sometimes, or non-peer-reviewed journals. In other words, nobody's looked at the article to see if it's a rigorously done study or even a study at all. And then from review articles from third world countries. And sometimes no source can be found whatsoever. And it's simply from an internet article. And that's the big issue that I suffer with, is that I get calls or emails weekly about somebody saw this on TikTok and Instagram, and it's promoted by a doctor who has 800,000 followers. And then, when you look closely, it's a doctor of philosophy or a doctor of biology or a doctor of functional medicine, but we won't get into it. And really has no qualifications to be talking about any of this stuff. So the supplement industry is really interesting. So there's anywhere between 75 and $100 billion spent annually in the United States by consumers on nutritional supplements. Since much of the nation shops at Walmart or Costco, what better place to look for over-the-counter compounds associated with lowering cholesterol? A quick search of actually the Walmart website produced a listing of 65 plus dietary supplements or nutraceuticals associated in some way with cholesterol health. People want to take control of their health, but the unfortunate reality is that many, if not most of these products won't do much to help, and some are likely downright harmful. Today I'm going to talk about some of these better known compounds present in some of these products. Okay, so first we're going to talk about red yeast rice. And red yeast rice is an extract that's produced by the red yeast that is grown on white polished rice. There are many published studies which have reported the use of red yeast rice will actually have a favorable effect on your lipid profile, in other words, lowering your cholesterol. However, historically, the active ingredient in red yeast rice is something called monocholine K, which is an agent that's reported to be identical to the FDA-approved statin called lovastatin, which was the first statin developed. I say historically because due to FDA regulations, products had to be reformulated. So in 1998, the FDA determined that red yeast rice did not conform to the definition of a dietary supplement under the 1994 Diet Supplement and Health Education Act, which is also known as DSHEA, all capitals. The act states that marketed dietary supplements cannot contain a compound already approved as a drug, in this case lovastatin, unless it was commercially available prior to the drug's approval. Thus, after 1998, all Rio red yeast rice supplements sold in the United States should have been reformulated and contain no red yeast rice extract or monocholine K. However, since the nutraceutical industry continues to be unregulated, the FDA does not check, and we really can't be sure what is in the compounds today. And, I know in doing reviews, there's some that contain none, and when analyzed in a lab, there's some that contain toxic levels. And I always tell my patients, if you're going to take something for cholesterol and you're taking a statin, either mismarketed or having toxic levels, or you don't know what it is, don't you want to take something that is FDA approved, is proven in multiple large-scale peer-reviewed studies to reduce the risk of major adverse cardiovascular events by 40% plus? And the answer is, when people sit and think about it, the answer is yes. So a study of a newer version of red yeast rice published actually in 2008 in the American Journal of Cardiology suggested that this ingredient called XZK for short may have significant benefits. The published study was a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. So those are the best kind of studies conducted at Chinese hospitals on 4,870 patients who had previous heart attacks within the previous 5 years. So sounds great. The primary endpoint was the occurrence of a major coronary event or death from cardiac causes. The findings were striking, in this study. There was a 45% reduction of the relative risk of major coronary adverse events, and a statistically significant reduction in cardiovascular and total mortality. So you're thinking to yourself, this stuff's the bomb. This is great stuff. However, the National Lipid Association, who's our governing body in terms of all things cholesterol in the United States, felt compelled to write an official statement on the study, advising physicians and patients to beware because the composition of the product is not known. The XZK ingredient is produced by Beijing WBL, Peking University Biotech Company, and the purified extract, and is the purified extract of Chinese red yeast rice and multiple components. The product is not sold in the United States, lacks any FDA approval, is not identical to any other product sold in the United States as, quote, red yeast rice. Now, this does not mean that the particular brand is not brought into this country illegally. Like the product known as Colestin XZK contains no lovastatin, no plant sterols, excuse me, XZK contains lovastatin, plant sterols, and isoflavones. At the present time, it is not known to what extent, if any, lipid lowering accounts for treatment benefit. In other words, we don't know what it does, and really what's in it. We know what's not in it, but we don't know what's in it. Now, while there's many red yeast rice related products available, as I just said, we don't know what's in them. Many of the products available in the United States do contain monocholine K, and I said before, in unknown amounts. It's also been shown to contain citrinin, which is toxic to the kidneys in animals, and when placed in a food colorant, has been shown to cause mutations in low concentrations during pregnancy. It's also been found to contain plant sterols, CoQ10, niacin, etc. A study published in 2010 that tested 12 red yeast rice products said to contain 600 milligrams red yeast rice, all contained monocholine K, which again is lovastatin, between 0.31 and 11.5 milligrams per capsule. So you can see it doesn't even contain close to what they say it does. And 20.5 milligrams of monocholine K would be equivalent to a starting dose of lovastatin. This natural product is not good for you. That's the bottom line. There's no evidence that it impacts favorably cardiovascular morbidity or mortality, and that it actually reduces heart attacks or strokes. Most recently, the Journal of Clinical Lipidology published a study in 2013 that assessed FDA oversight of companies manufacturing red yeast rice products and reviewed the label content of available products. It found that the FDA had no information on the number of red yeast rice manufacturers and their compliance with current good manufacturing processes, as I said before, which is designed to assure that the products are not adulterated with impurities or contaminants and are actually properly labeled. Though the study reviewed a total of 101 products containing red yeast rice, no product could be confirmed as passing any independent laboratory verification testing. And, the studies that have been done in the Western world have shown no effect of red yeast rice. Yes, if it does have monocholine K and it does have lovastatin, or the lovastatin equivalent, it will lower your cholesterol, but there's been no effect on major adverse cardiovascular events, as I said. So here's the bottom line with red yeast rice products. Physicians should not advise any patients to take this supplement because it's not been proven for any indication. Patients should not take any red yeast rice supplements if they're already taking a medicine or for cholesterol management because adverse events are more likely. Red yeast rice should not be substituted for statins. The active ingredients of any of these preparations currently sold in the U.S. are unknown. Okay, and we'll move on to the next group of substances used for lipid lowering. So, and these are called sterols. So, a sterol, of which cholesterol is one, are waxy, insoluble substances. In other words, they're not soluble in water, that are crucial components of cell membranes. So we all need sterols. The most well-known sterol, as I just said, was cholesterol. However, there's non-cholesterol sterols, which come primarily from plants, are known as plant sterols or phytosterols. There's 40 recognized non-cholesterol sterols, okay? And those are components of plants, yeast, fungi, and shellfish, and they're present in the human diet. non-cholesterol sterols are present in Western diets in amounts equal to that of cholesterol, which is the normal person consumes about 150 to 300 milligrams daily of cholesterol and these non-cholesterol sterols. So the most common non-cholesterol sterol is what's called cytosterol. And cytosterol has no function in the human body, yet it's in most green leafy vegetables, in plants, and in the normal human, the absorption of cytosterol is minimal, and blood levels are extremely low. For over 50 years, plant sterols have been used therapeutically to reduce cholesterol levels. Okay, so people go to the health food store and take plant sterols or phytosterols. There's numerous double-blind studies that have shown an LDL cholesterol lowering benefit, generally in the range of 10 to 14%. Phytosterols were originally recommended by the National Cholesterol Education Panel, Adult Treatment Panel 3, as an adjunct to lifestyle changes to help lower total and LDL cholesterol levels. However, in order to market products as healthy and good for you, the food industry has started putting plant sterols into many foods that we eat. Today, plant sterols are being added in large amounts to foods, vitamins, supplements, and even baby aspirin, purported to lower LDL cholesterol and total cholesterol levels. However, here's the problem. When any sterol, any of them, anything that ends in OL, enters the wall of the artery and is eaten up by a cell called a macrophage, it becomes what is called a foam cell. And a foam cell is the hallmark of atherosclerosis. So the presence of any sterol in humans, which gains entry into the bloodstream and is transported by, as many of you know, because I talk about it all the time, lipoprotein particles into the arterial wall, it becomes an atherosclerotic plaque leading to a blockage. So there is no outcome data, however, that exists from randomized trials with respect to steroid therapy. So in other words, does it really lower your incidence of major adverse cardiovascular events? So these sterol additives actually create a health risk for a portion of people in the United States because the general public is largely unaware that most humans absorb 50% of sterols in the intestine, but some people absorb way more, and they're called hyperabsorbers. They absorb about 60 to 80% of both cholesterol and non-cholesterol sterols. So the population that is known to have an increased incidence of non-cholesterol sterol levels in the blood include menopausal women, people with a strong family history of premature atherosclerosis, and most importantly, patients on statins. And just of note, you can have clogged arteries even if you're a vegan. So the bottom line, using phytosterols as a food additive is not a good idea. It is heightening the risk of atherosclerosis for a vulnerable segment of the population. So in other words, in certain people, it's okay, but in maybe up to 50% of the population, it's not okay and can cause atherosclerosis. The next product is Google, which are sold as Google lipids, and they are found in the arid regions of India and Pakistan and believed to be the active ingredients in the resin of the Google tree, which is the Commiphora mucol. The substance is marketed in the U.S. under the name Google Lipids as a dietary supplement to promote cholesterol control. Most of the studies of Google lipid efficacy have concentrated in the Eastern Indian population. One placebo-controlled trial in India found that it lowered LDL cholesterol by 12%. On the strength of this study, it was approved for use in India. The only randomized study in the United States was an 8-week double-blinded randomized placebo-controlled trial using parallel design. During this carefully controlled clinical trial, the Google lipids had no effect on LDL cholesterol, and in fact actually increased LDL cholesterol in the majority of treated patients. Of some concern was the high rate of hypersensitivity rashes, which occurred in up to 9% of the patients. So the bottom line is that in both Indian and Western studies, there does appear to be, some patients who did respond to Google lipids. The percentage of people responding favorably in the Indian trials suggests that perhaps the population may be different in some basic way, like genetically or environmentally, from the Caucasian population. I mean, that's one theory. But, it's really shown nothing in any trial to lower events. And as I said, it does raise cholesterol in a good percentage of people and cause hypersensitivity reaction. The final thing we're going to discuss is polycosanol. Polycosanol, you can also buy in a health food store, is a mixture of long-chain primary aliphatic alcohols associated with sugarcane wax. Polycosanol products can also be derived from wheat germ, rice bran, and beeswax. The most widely available polycosanol products come from Cuba, as a matter of fact, and has been sold as a cholesterol-lowering product in over 40 countries. Until recently, there was only a single Cuban research group who performed nearly all these studies on polycosanol. So while the Cuban studies showed promise, however, publications of negative studies outside of Cuba about the beneficial effects of polycosanol have been called into question. Overall, any recent placebo-controlled trial examining the cholesterol-lowering effects of polycosanol failed to demonstrate any significant lipid-lowering effect. So at the present time, polycosanol cannot be recommended for the treatment of high cholesterol. So the final slide is let the buyer beware when it comes to efficacy of a supplement. A compound that has been demonstrated to be effective through clinical trials, we come up empty. Some of these over-the-counter supplements may help lower cholesterol levels for some patients under some conditions, but some may also conflict with medications or other supplements, and some may actually be downright harmful. So any patient seeing a doctor for condition should always check with them before using the products. And, just beware if you go to the internet and you go to TikTok or Instagram, anybody can say anything, and really look at their qualifications. And there's another website called Quack Watch, which you can really, a lot of these doctors or so-called doctors are on it, and it shows what they've been accused of, or some of them have been indicted for fraud, etc. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I thank you for listening.